Hello there, welcome to my channel. My name is Faith Dodger and I'm literally the girl next door. Today I'm in Brentwood visiting the Kelvedon Hatch. It's a secret nuclear bunker, the biggest and deepest bunker. It initially was the Royal Air Force Rotor Station, then it became the Civil Defense Center, then recently it became the government headquarters. Do you want to know more about this place? It sounds mysterious, doesn't it? Well, if you're interested, follow me and watch the video to the end. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. The Kelvedon Hatch secret nuclear bunker at Kelvedon Hatch in Brentwood, Essex, is a large underground bunker maintained during the Cold War as a potential regional government headquarters. The bunker had three main lives, initially as an RAF Rotor Station and latterly a regional government headquarters, with a brief period in the 1960s as a civil defense center. There were also spare bunk beds in the tunnel to help accommodate some of the hundreds of civilian and military personnel that would be stationed here in the time of nuclear attack. The bunker was built on land requisitioned from the local farmer J.A. Parrish. Paradoxically, as the heat of the Cold War died down, the bunker and its ancillary systems were no longer required by the government and were costing up to £3 million a year to keep on standby. Upon decommissioning in 1992, the bunker was bought back from the government by the Parrish family at a closed bid public auction and hence is now privately owned. The inside of the bungalow leads to a 100-yard long tunnel entering the R4 at its lowest floor. Above are two more floors, the hill which covers it and a radio mast some distance away. We're looking at Geiger counters which give radiation dose readings of an environment in the case of radiation exposure.
Squadron Leader Parrish, please attend the ROC room. Squadron Leader Parrish, please attend the ROC room.
In front of us are blast doors, which weigh a ton and a half. Once shut, the 600 occupants would be closed in for 3 months. The bunker has air conditioning and heating, its own water supply and generators, and was equipped with many types of radio equipment, protected telecommunications, teleprinter networks, and various military systems. Mold system to provide communication systems post-nuclear strike. This is supposedly former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher making a national broadcast. In the case that atomic bombs had been dropped, the locations they landed would have been marked. Military personnel would be plotting on the cold perspex where the bombs would have gone off and where the radiation would be spreading to. Can you believe this is actually a clock? Look at it. How on earth would they tell the time? It's got interesting clockwork. Very interesting. This is the plant room, which facilitates cooling function. This would have been the Prime Minister's resting quarters if need had arisen. This bag contains the actual anti-terrorist survival kit from ex-UK Prime Minister David Cameron's car. These are various government departments headed by the Commissioner. Their main function was to allocate surviving resources to survivors. There were 450 of them and would spend 3 months. This was the bunker's seat bay. The bunker also had a basic operating theatre. The hotbed system was put in place. This involved people taking turns to sleep as beds were limited. The bunker also had on standby a morgue with coffins and body bags.
I have the privilege of introducing you to Mr. Mike Parrish, the owner of the Kelvedon Hatch secret nuclear bunker. Mr. Parrish, could you tell me what inspired you to buy this place?
Do please call me Mike.
Okay.
Well, in 1952, the government approached my grandfather. I'm the fifth generation. We farm 2,000 acres here. My son now does the farming, and I'm down here farming the public. Anyway, the government approached my grandfather because they wanted this 25 acres to build a bunker.
Oh.
He had fought 2 world wars. and so said he didn't want to fight a third, so he was reasonably amenable to the government taking the land. So although it was under the threat of compulsory purchase, it didn't actually have to take place. So we let them have the land, and they bulldozed the hill away and built this bunker. It's 10 foot thick, reinforced walls, covered by the grassland obviously, and so it would have hidden here so the Russians wouldn't know it was here.
So did you have to move? Did your family have to move from these premises when the...
No, it's a farm. 2,000 acres, about 4 square miles.
Oh,
and so
okay.
the farmhouses are variously spread. This was in the middle of the farm.
Oh, I see.
Which is why when the government stopped using it in 1994, we bought it back so that we could open as a tourist attraction, because the public is lovely if you've got some control over it, absolute pain if you haven't. And I know a farm is a big garden, and this was in the middle of my big garden, and so we didn't really want the public running all over everywhere if we hadn't got control of it.
Oh, that's true. And owning this place, what does it mean to you personally?
Well, it's nice to have secured a bit in our back garden, if you like, but it is historic, and because of that it is obviously of national interest. It had its first life, which was under the Air Ministry, and don't forget it was 1952 it was built, just after the war. Churchill had served his time with Stalin and knew what an SH-1T he was. They had got von Brunn and were beginning to make the atomic weapons. We, the British public, of course, got rid of Churchill after the war, didn't have him as our Prime Minister, and didn't elect him back until 1952. The first things he did was to build these bunkers. And technology then was you put an H-bomb in an aeroplane and you drove over and you dropped it on Hiroshima or Nagasaki. But the V-bomb, of course, which was the beginning of the intercontinental ballistic missiles, was obviously in Churchill's mind, so he knew that there was that sort of risk. And so this was built so that we could, in old-fashioned terms, scramble our aircraft to go and intercept the Russian bears that would have been carrying the atomic bombs. Technology moved on very quickly, and so did radar. We invented radar, the British.
Wow.
And it was 3 different elements. It did height, it did distance, and it did direction. And that all had to come together to a plotting floor, which is why on all Second World War films you see the WAF there moving the little counters, and that was because they'd got these 3 elements together and they knew where the Russians were, and so they were able to scramble us up to meet them. We gave our secrets away to the Americans, as we seem to do all the time, because we were afraid that the Germans were going to invade us. And so they worked on it, and by the late 60s they'd invented the Type 88, which is pretty much what we have now, which is all those 3 elements in one radar. So it meant it was no longer needed to be down here. They moved them to the airfields, so they were able to scramble our aircraft that much quicker to intercept the Russian bears that were going to come and drop atomic bombs on us.
Okay.
So we were then converted into a regional government headquarters. The theory being is that once a bomb had gone off, central government wouldn't be able to govern the country. And so the country was split into, it varied, but towards the end, 18 regions. Each region had a bunker and a sub-bunker, so that the commissioner, who would have been a cabinet minister, could run each, or a senior, no, it would have been a cabinet minister, could run each area as though he were government. And then once the radiation had dropped and everything else, well then central government would draw back their powers. So this was the London bunker. This would have governed London and the people in and around it. The commissioner would have had powers of life and death. He would be allocating surviving resources to those of us that had survived. And that's what we were, right the way up till 1992. In the late 80s, Maggie Thatcher and Gorbachev got together and decided the Cold War was a silly game to play. And of course, great British public, like we did with Churchill, we then got rid of Thatcher. And so John Major became the Prime Minister, and he then started closing these because the Russians are now our friends, and nobody can drop a bomb on us yet, unless the French can on us, to be a problem. So that's why these were now closed. We obviously purchased it back, and so we've now opened it as a tourist attraction, and it's open every day for people such as you to come and visit us.
Okay.
And I'm sure you found it jolly interesting.
Really fascinating. And one fascinating thing I noticed was that Margaret Thatcher spent some time here. How much time did she spend?
She didn't spend any time here. She did visit.
Oh, she did?
We know
Okay.
she visited. She was Prime Minister, obviously. We know she visited, and presumably that was part of the government's thing of showing Prime Ministers what happens if something really naughty happens. And we know she visited because her bodyguard lived in the local village, and he told us that she'd been down here. So we know she'd been down here. We knew the Duke of Edinburgh had been down here, and so on, because of the book signing. So I imagine most Prime Ministers, as this was the nearest to London, would have perhaps had a briefing session just to show them where they might have to come if there was an atomic war.
Okay. And how busy does it get here?
During the school holidays, we're quite busy. We're open all year, so some days like today, we've just got a film crew and maybe 20, 30 people going through. Other days we're rammed out, so it's just as people seem fit.
Okay. And I must say you're doing a great job of preserving this place, and you've preserved history well, because these are some of the things that you need to see for yourself and actually appreciate what the government and the armed forces did to protect the nation. So you're doing a very good job, and thank you for that, and thank you for giving me your time just to understand it better from your perspective.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
The secret bunker was never used to alleviate nuclear attacks, but it served as a contingency plan set up during the Cold War if need ever arose. Shout out to Carly for giving me the heads up on this place. Please head over to her channel and subscribe.